Plugged in today.
You got, I'm sure you got the right one. There's 2 doors. You got the right door. Many of them have 2 doors. Fast charger.
Oh, you know what? That may be.
He just wants to sit here because Scott's a good boy.
Yeah. Come back over to the left side.
I was just reminded one more time that I'm coming up on the wrong side of the stairs.
I just want to make sure.
Sure.
I'm out of town that day.
Okay, we'll get that for you. Just remind me, we'll get one for you.
Dude, we're going to talk about
No problem. No problem.
We're going to talk about stuff.
Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Town Council for June 15, 2015. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen? Here. Mr. Preston is not here. Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz? Here. Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Gaines?
Here.
We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business is the Omnibus agenda. These are items that are considered routine and will be handled by a single vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. And I would like to be excused from voting on any bills I may have incurred in my duties as mayor. Mr. Fritzen?
Yes, I'd ask to be excused from voting on the Bloomington offset bill.
Motion for approval.
Move approval. Second.
Thank you. Items considered on the omnibus tonight are the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 1st, 2015, and approval of town of normal expenditures for payment as of June 10th, 2015. A resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Bloomington for the regulation of drivers for hire. That's having to do with Uber and Lyft. A resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement for technical planning services with the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. A resolution waiving the formal bid process and authorizing the purchase of several pieces of golf course maintenance equipment, and that's via the National Cooperative Contract Solutions Program of the National Joint Powers Alliance. Sounds like a military organization. And a resolution waiving the formal bid process and authorizing the purchase of 3 trucks through the State of Illinois Joint Purchasing in a total amount of $85,198, and an ordinance establishing prevailing wage rates for the coming year.
Mayor, can I just to clarify item E? You received an amended report at your table. That has to do with the golf course equipment. There was, on the second page, there carried over a number that was inaccurate. It didn't affect the total at the bottom, but that number was just inaccurate. I'll point out that Tyler Bain is here. Tyler, raise your hand if you would. Tyler's our golf course maintenance superintendent. If you've got any questions specific to the equipment, he can answer those. That's all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz? Aye. Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. The omnibus agenda is approved. We have a couple of items of general business tonight. The first is a resolution conditionally approving an amended final development plan for the South Cottage Village PUD, and that is east of Cottage Avenue and south of Hubby. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Ms. Lorenz?
I have a question with a little bit of a comment as background. I'm a little concerned about where we're going with this, and I guess I kind of question if we're deviating a bit from the idea of what a planned unit development is supposed to be. This removal of this parcel seems a little bit reactionary to me. And so my question really, with that commentary behind it, do we know what the developer long-term is planning? And I realize this planned unit development's been on the books for a number of years, and maybe it's not going in the direction that initially thought. So, you know, what are his plans going forward? And, you know, might we expect another carve-out, you know, in another year or 18 months if some opportunity comes along? So that's my question and concerns behind it.
I believe the developer is still, you know, committed to the PUD as it's currently constituted, and that would be to find developments that somehow are cater to older citizens, and I think that's still his hope and his intent. This was kind of an unusual circumstance in that the owners of the property were approached by a company wanting to develop a Dollar General on the very south end, probably the least desirable parcel on the site, at least in terms of residential opportunities, because it's right next to our lime sludge storage lagoon. Crystal Lake is, I think, former Councilmember Chambers labeled it. So it's not, you know, it's not a real, you know, ideal location, and it seemed to fit the character of the neighborhood, the type of business. That's why staff is recommending. They didn't propose to remove any other parcels from the PUD. Certainly, if they do, they'll have to come back to this body, and it'll go through a full public hearing process through the Planning Commission and Council. So any changes, again, will come here ultimately for approval after a thorough vetting through the public process. But at this point, they indicated, did not indicate anything to us that would lead us to believe that they're going to pursue other types of development that might be inconsistent with what we initially envisioned with the PUD.
Okay.
Ms. Gaines?
I had some of the same question, because I don't know that I recall us ever cutting anything out of a PUD before.
I don't know that we've done it. We've certainly amended PUDs quite often to allow for uses that were not anticipated, and that's something we could have simply done here. Simply amend the PUD to allow this type of use in the PUD. It would require some waivers. The alternative is just to pull this parcel out of the PUD, which really has the same effect. And I think at the staff level, we thought that was a cleaner process just to remove it. But we could have left it, proposed to just leave it in the PUD and amend the restrictions to allow this type of business to locate here. And it's really not clear. The PUD has a variety of restricted businesses. It's really not clear to me where Dollar General would fit in. Clearly, it will cater to all sorts of people, and we think that residents, for example, of the assisted living facility will probably find this as a welcome opportunity to buy various things there. I was just in a Dollar General recently to see what all is in there, and they have all kinds of things from food items to you know, health and hygiene items and sundries and all sorts of things. So I think for the residents of the assisted living facility, my guess is they'll find this to be a nice option because they can access it through a pedestrian way without having to cross the street. So I think it actually fits in pretty well here, but it certainly wasn't what we initially envisioned.
On Cottage Street, or Avenue, or whichever. So on the west, or excuse me, the east side is, of course, normal, all the way down past the pond.
Yeah, just to the sewage or the slime sludge lagoon. Yes,
okay.
just past there.
Just past there. On the west side, is it further north?
Right. It's normal. I think in corporate limits is the Jewel Osco, and I'm not sure. Greg, can you help me on the family video? I think that's That's Bloomington. Yeah.
So where does this, so the street starts getting divided where?
From a jurisdictional perspective.
Yeah,
Highway.
so who's, you know, I mean,
Recall how that street's divided? I don't recall
With
where the
regard
line-
to like
it's somewhere-
access, Ms. Gaines, or maintenance, or just?
well, I was thinking maintenance and access, because one of the things that came up at the planning commission meeting, I think, was how much pedestrian traffic back and forth, kind of in the middle of this street that can be fairly busy with people swinging around that curve and all. And so that's what I was wondering, because it said, well, we could review it, but what does that mean? You know, I mean, is this gonna, because the reason I kind of worry more about this than the people going to Jewel Osco is because it's further down, and Turnberry's right across, going to be kind of right across the street from that, so it's going to be back and forth there. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, I'm afraid it's an accident waiting to happen out there, is what I guess.
Well, let me just add that, you know, most of the commercial corridors are arterial streets where you have businesses on both sides of the
Right.
street. So that's pretty common where you've got arterial streets. And yeah, there really isn't a good place there for
Right.
for a you know, there's not a for a mid-block kind of crossing.
Right.
You know, but that situation exists all over town where you have heavy commercial corridors with retail on both sides of the street, and oftentimes apartment buildings or whatnot, and hopefully people will cross at the appropriate place. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just saying,
Yeah.
being cognizant
Sure.
of this, because it's a little different than some of the main corridors where we have things on both sides and traffic's more aware.
little, yeah.
When they're wheeling around there, it's not as,
Also, am I recalling correctly, Mr. Peterson, that a significant amount of land in that PUD would be the east, is not developable because of soil conditions?
Correct. And that, some of that land, I think, was given to the church, and others is going to be used for, you know, just passive recreation. But I think the church that, I can't think of the name of the church that fronts on.
Grace.
Grace Church.
And I don't think they ever transferred any land. I think it was discussed, but I think
I
the
think
church
they,
still
they
owns.
have an agreement to do so.
And there's
That's my
some green
understanding.
space that Grace owns as well, but it's supposed to just be planted to grasses and then a trail through it, so.
That's in the
Condition.
prairie planting.
Mr. Fritzen?
Where will this lot have vehicular access? Will there be any vehicular access off Cottage? I know the report said all the
Oh, no, right.
undeveloped properties would have to
Correct.
take it from
Village court.
the village court, but
Correct.
will this have a drive on to Cottage?
No.
No,
No.
so this also, okay, because that's another, that would make that situation worse that Ms. Gaines described, I think, if there was, and with the curve leading into it from the south and the west, that I don't know that I could support it if there was a drive directly accessing off a Cottage.
There's actually a no access strip on the final plat, so it's not even negotiable.
Yeah.
At this point, it's there, so
Thank you.
when you approve it.
Further discussion on this item? Mr. McBride?
Just a comment. I was part of the Planning Commission when this went through, and I was somewhat disappointed to see that the landscaping had not been done yet. So I just wanted to thank staff for implementing and putting a deadline in here so there's some accountability and that gets done.
Gaines?
that was my other question. Why is there 2 years to do that landscaping? What, I don't understand. Is it,
Well, I think they were hoping to try to get more of it developed before they did that work, and, you know, we understand that, but we think 2 years is enough.
well, I don't think, yeah, I'm just saying, I'm surprised it's not a year it needs to be in, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
I mean, it's somewhat arbitrary, it could be, but we thought 2 years was reasonable, and it still does. They do hope to have more development that occurs there, but frankly, I don't think at this point in time there's anything active.
Right.
So I think they were hoping to have more of that front developed before they installed the landscaping and the trail and whatnot.
Further? Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
No.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, the resolution is approved. Items 7 and 8 both relate to the same piece of property. 7 is a resolution conditionally and partially approving the final plat of the Dollar General addition by expedited process. Motion for
approval.
approval. Thank you.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
No.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Item 8 is an ordinance rezoning the property in the town of Normal east of Cottage, south of Hubby. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
No.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The ordinance is approved. We have one item of new business tonight, and that is a motion to approve appointments and reappointments. Motion for approval, please.
Move approval.
Second.
And as this is an item of personnel, there will be no discussion unless a council member would like to take this to executive session for discussion. And seeing no such request, please call the roll.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Ms. Gaines, would you read those appointments, please?
Yes, I will. We're having a reappointment of John Thomas to a 4-year term on the Bloomington Normal Public Transit System Board. And for the Children's Discovery Museum Foundation Board of Directors, the reappointment of Byron Blotke and, is it Kimberly or Kimberly Cummings? And those are for another full 3-year terms. Also for the Foundation Board, recommending Ms. Paula Thornton of Ameren, Illinois, is recommended to fill the vacant seat of Ms. Peggy Hunley, and Mr. Ben Harmon is recommended to fill the vacant seat of Mr. Larry Nolan. I think that is what we have.
Great, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Absolutely. Before going to take a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Peterson?
And then,
Oh,
yep, go ahead if you want.
well, I just want to take this opportunity to introduce Chris Cotton to you. Chris, you want to stand up? He is fresh to our community from the Show Me State, Joplin, Missouri. He arrived Sunday, and we're tickled to have him here. And he's already had a very long day, very full day. And but he's anxious to hit the ground running, so we're tickled to have him here. And his family will be arriving as soon as possible. They're back in Joplin getting the house prepped for sale, and so that will significantly increase Normal's population when they arrive. It's a big family. So thank you, Chris. We're delighted to have you here. A couple other quick announcements. I just want to acknowledge that we hosted a very special event this weekend in our community. Special Olympics was here, and we have attempted as an organization to get more involved in Special Olympics than we have in the past. And as part of that, one of the activities that we got involved in, we hosted the traditional, they have a dance party Saturday night. We hosted that in Uptown Normal, and it was an overwhelming success. One might say too successful because it was very crowded. So next year we've got to reassess and provide more room. But I can tell you the athletes had a blast, and families could shop and eat and enjoy Uptown Normal. And the weather really cooperated at the end of the day. It was dicey at points, but I think they got almost all the activities in on both Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I want to give special acknowledgement to one of Rick's employees, Nikki Bruno, who headed up our employee committee, and she also has been very involved for many years in Special Olympics and the torch run that, of course, our police department participates in. And I think they raised $4 million, is that right, Rick, statewide, which is a huge increase over prior years. And then our own police officers, one day last week, were involved in a program called Cop on Top, and they were on top of the roof at Dunkin' Donuts, and I think raised roughly $7,500 in that range, which was substantially more than last year. So it was a great weekend, and fortunately, even though the forecast wasn't good, the rain kind of held off when it needed to. Speaking of fun events for the weekend, we've got another one coming up this Saturday, and it's called Make Music Normal. And from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. there will be all kinds of opportunities to enjoy musical performances throughout the community. Certainly Uptown Normal is the epicenter, but we'll have performers at Fell Park and the amphitheater and other places throughout the day. It's on, Heather's got it on the social media. It's everywhere you go, you're going to bump into a performer. I think we've got over 30 performers, both bands and individuals. And then that culminates in a special concert at the Normal Theater that evening at 7, and that is, what's the name of that? Yes, that is what it is. It's Latin music or something. Really, apparently very, very good. And that will be at the Normal Theater. So this is part of a national program. Many communities participate. We started last year at the mayor's urging, and it was very successful, and it's just obviously grown in success this year. We have a lot of people, a lot of very talented musicians who called up and said, I want to be part of this, and so they are performing again all over town. Should be a great day. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. We hope. We'll see. But that's this coming Saturday. That's all I have.
Mr. Fritzen.
I'm a bit hesitant to address this, but I'm going to forge ahead. There recently was a letter to the editor, and you know, I'm hesitant because somebody may say, well, geez, Fritzen in his old age is getting thin-skinned or something like that, and that's not the case at all. I encourage people to, you know, let us know their feelings about things, whether it be through a letter to the editor or email or a phone call. I do have a landline for that purpose only. It's not used really for anything else other than public comment. Rarely make a phone call on it, but this letter to the editor was probably the second one of a similar nature, and then it was followed up by another one that mentioned, you know, sidewalk repair in the community and the like, and it's amazing, you know, you just mentioned the Make Music Normal and how you know, the schedule's on the website and information's out on social media, and where we think we communicate so well today, we don't communicate very well at all, evidently, because some people just really don't understand some of the details about what's happening in Normal. And this particular letter, first kind of a technicality, but I can't ignore it, referred to Uptown Normal as urban sprawl, and I think it's probably one of the greatest examples of infill that you know, has happened ever in the state of Illinois, at the very least, if not in the central United States. You know, so the letter says the town wants to spend upwards of $13 million to build a tunnel under the tracks to get to the other side, and you know, I don't know that anybody has ever said that that's what the town wants to do. The town is, I think we're doing our due diligence by investigating the possibilities as they were presented to us. I mean, we hired a consultant who's very familiar with the town to come in and work with us, and they presented the idea, and we thought it had enough merit to investigate the possibilities. And now all of a sudden it's something we want to do, and plans are already in place, you know, whatever. So I question where the gentleman's information is coming from when we are in this information age of so much information. And it also sounds like we're committed to a new library as well. And so I, you know, like I said, I encourage people to contact us, ask questions, challenge us. I mean, that's what we open ourselves up to when we run for a public office. But, to start out with a letter to the editor talking about normal is focusing on wants instead of needs, to me, just it's kind of puzzling, I guess, in this day and age. So it does list some things that we are working on and encourages us to stay the course with fire stations, pensions, and street repairs. I mean, we have an annual budget for street repairs. Obviously, with the 2 winters we've had most recently, or 2 of the worst we've had on record in the several decades, street repair is a difficult thing. We do live in the Midwest. Pensions is something we have made a commitment to, getting those things actuarially sound, and the fire stations are, the plans are in